Back at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, final practice for the NASCAR Nationwide Series teams. Of course, the big air show at the Nellis Air Force Base here just behind this mile-and-a-half track. Hi, everybody. Glad you're with us. Steve Burns, Kyle Petty, and Jeff Hammond. Kyle, what do you want to talk about? Just kidding.
Okay.
I don't want to bail him out.
I see how this works.
I don't want to bail him out.
Just threw Kyle under the bus. But anyways, Jeff, they had a 50-minute practice and an hour and 20-minute practice. Now, final practice, what's the agenda?
I think it's about the same as it was the first time. I think these guys are going to be working strictly on race setups. Now, if you're trying to make the race, you're probably going to look at doing some qualifying runs if we have qualifying, so you know what you've got going for you. But I'm looking for a lot of these major teams to try to save their tires, put themselves in a position where they can worry more about race setup than anything else. They still believe weather's going to be a problem on Saturday. I think we're going to get the race in. I'm talking about qualifying early in the morning like they need to. That might get scrubbed. We may start by points, so I think these guys that are up in the points are going to be taking care of that.
Yeah,
think of anything
no, and I agree with him, because here's the thing. Just like you talk about saving tires, what if they rain this thing out all day tomorrow and they have to run it on Monday or something?
Right.
Now you've got an extra day of those tires and a heat cycle where they've set for a day and a half. That totally changes the tire. And when you start looking at it, if they do qualify, it mixes up qualifying, because now you're going to have teams that didn't practice qualifying, and you're going to have teams that must get in the race on qualifying. They're going to be out here trying to. So if they do have qualifying, qualifying would be interesting.
You know, we talk about interesting qualifying, folks. Believe it or not, guess who drew #1 for going out tomorrow if they do qualify?
What's her name?
What's her name in that green and black car? Danica Patrick will be going out #1. I think, again, she would just be happy to probably have qualifying rained out.
All right. Well, Matt, a bit of a surprise, the fastest driver in first practice.
It was that yellow car belonging to Paul Menard. Now, you know, he's chasing his third career pole in Nationwide Series. His first two poles, Talladega and Kansas. Now, you can see behind me, these guys are feverishly working on this race car. No, they're not. The reason being, they know they've got a fast car. It was P1 in that practice. They are not going to go out and make any laps during this practice session. They don't want to take a chance on what is already a great race car having some kind of hiccup and messing up their shot at a pole. So it's going to stay on jack stands, Dick Berggren, for this entire session.
Indeed it is, but Danica Patrick's car is on its way to the racetrack, and crew chief Tony Uri Jr. told me moments ago that he is going to have her run laps until her tongue hangs out. This will be Danica Patrick's last nationwide start until we get all the way into June at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. She was 23rd on the first practice session, so they're looking to pick that up a little bit by trying to loosen the car up. And I want to show you something here. Right next door to Patrick is Brendan Gaughan's operation. Brendan had this sign made up for here because there have been so many TV cameras, so many still cameras in Danica's garage area. He's kind of hoping that they're going to get that sign in the wide shot. South Point, of course, is his sponsor.
Clever, clever. But to the point about Tony Uri Jr., Kyle, and you said it in first practice, she is here to make laps.
Yeah, and she's got to make laps. You know, she didn't get a full race in at Daytona. California last week, she got a full race in, 2 or 3 laps shy, but that was what she needed. This morning, she ran like 32 or 33 laps. She ran the most laps this morning. Now, she's going to take a 3 or 4 month break. And we talked about her coming in this morning. If you watch the first practice session here on Speed, you talk about her being in an open wheel car, coming back over here, adjusting her seat, adjusting your steering wheel, all the things and all the subtleties that make stock car racing different from open wheel. She's going to have to relearn when she comes back in 2 or 3 months, and then she's on a flat mile track, which is totally different than anything she's run. So she just needs to get as many laps as she can in a stock car under her belt.
But I think what they're trying to do, Steve, is making sure when she does leave here, she's got a lot to reflect on and to ponder on during that period of time, so that when she does come back, it won't seem quite so strange.
Yeah, and Jeff hit on it in the first practice. He said one time with Darrell, they moved the steering wheel 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch, and Darrell went out and run 2 or 3 tenths faster. If you watch the first practice, Danica, when she got the steering wheel where she wanted it, she picked up speed. She was instantly faster in the next practice. The one thing that you have to do when you have a rookie driver, and there's the lap times they're talking to, one thing you have to do when you have a rookie driver is sometimes the best thing for a rookie driver is to go run a bunch of laps and then sit on their butt and think about it, because they're always faster when they go out. So she should be better this practice, and as she gets more laps under her belt and she gets away from the sport and can think about it, she's going to be better every time she comes back.
Kyle, you talk about driver comfort a lot and moving the steering wheel. I remember years ago asking Buddy Baker, I said, how does a driver get a favorite car? and you know, to get when you feel that comfortable. And he said, Steve, there's nothing fancy about it. It's like your favorite pair of shoes or your favorite jacket. It just feels good.
Yeah, you know, it's the same old thing. A favorite car is what feels good to you. It's the feel of the car. It's feeling it through the seat. It's feeling it
coming off the corner.
It's feeling it through the seat. It's feeling it in the backs of your legs and in your butt. It's feeling it in your hands. You feel the car, and I don't know how to explain it. It's like sitting in your favorite lazy boy and flipping the TV. That's just the favorite position to be in. And when you're comfortable, then you're going to be a lot better. You can focus on what you're doing a lot better. And you know that some cars are that way, and some cars you get in them the first time and you hate them. They just have personalities.
Dick Berggren.
Well, Danica has gotten very high marks for her performance in her NASCAR career, brief NASCAR career for sure, but this is very much a team sport, and a round of applause needs to go to Tony Eury Jr., who on top of the pit box as her crew chief has done a wonderful job of guiding Danica through the various laps that she has run, and also her spotter, Chip Ross, who all of us in the broadcast crew have listened to for the last several weeks, and he has done an incredible job of guiding her as to where she should be. High lane, low lane, middle lane, crash in front of you, go high, go low. And Danica has been very smart in listening to those people with a lot of experience around here who are trying to help her.
Dick, she is 15th overall and heading towards you. Meanwhile, Greg Biffle, second quick. He was atop the timing and scoring chart for a long time earlier.
And he was. He went out right off the bat, was the fastest car in the first practice. But the car that's atop the scoring right now, the 18 car of Kyle Busch, was the one that went out early on and didn't have the transponder on, so he never got his first few laps. And we made that comment in the first show that Kyle Busch was going to be fast.
But Kyle, I like what you said about him earlier, and the fact that Kyle is just ahead of him as far as the time is concerned. But talking to Greg Biffle, he feels like that even though he's got a good race car, he still doesn't have the best race car. He's got some work to do, especially with this Ford. It's not quite getting the job done in comparison to the Toyotas.
Yeah, in comparison to the Toyotas. But if you watch Biffle go around the racetrack, the one thing that I think the Roush organization and Biffle prides themselves on is making time through the corner, rolling through the center of the corner. You see him going into turn one right here, right between this section right here where he just passed, and right about here is where that car really needs to turn. And that's what Greg said. At California, we killed them through the middle of the corner. We could roll in on them and roll through the middle. We just got beat a little bit down the straightaway. And I think this is a tighter racetrack than California.
I was going to say that, yeah.
California is such a sweeping racetrack. If you can get that middle and make it work here, I saw Rick Corelli in a truck here kill him one time in a truck race. Underpowered, but kill him one time in a truck race. He rolled through the center so well.
Early in this practice is Kyle Busch, Greg Biffle, Justin Allgaier in a Dodge, Kelly Byers in a Chevrolet. Stay with us here on Speed. Speed's presentation of NASCAR Nationwide Final Practice from Las Vegas is brought to you by Hamburger Helper. 1 pound, 1 pan, 1 tasty meal. And by the Sponsifier. Visit ToyotaRacing.com and click on Design It, Enter It. Final practice for the NASCAR Nationwide Series teams underway as we take a look at our Toyota track description. 1.5 miles around. We talked about in the earlier practice a couple years ago, they increased the banking from 12 to 20 degrees.
And it's not like any other 1.5 mile racetrack on the circuit, according to my driver buddy over here, Mr. Kyle Petty. And I'll agree with him as far as the crew chief's concerned. You approach this racetrack, you know, a little different than you do Lowe's or Charlotte Motor Speedway now, or Atlanta, or even Texas. Even though they're similar in design, characteristics are totally different.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when you get into a half-mile racetrack or a 1.5 mile racetrack, it's not so much the shape of the 1.5 mile, it's the transitions from the straightaways to the corner. That totally changes the way a racetrack drives. If you're 9 degrees on the straightaway and 20 in the corner, or you're X on the straightaway and Y in the corner, whatever that number may be, and how quick that transition happens. And this is a very smooth transition into these corners. It just kind of rolls off in there. So that's what makes it, for me, totally different than looking at the other 1.5 miles.
You carry a lot of speed around this racetrack right here. You know, and what I was going to say is, we take a look right here at now Denny Hamlin driving the 20 car for Joe Gibbs Racing, who is currently 6th quickest in this practice session. When you think about tracks and you think about that transition deal, one of the local favorites here, one of the Busch brothers, Kurt Busch, I worked with, he was big on transition angles. He wanted to understand, you know, when he was going off down the straightaway and he was turning off into a corner, what was there to catch that car? What was there to make it feel like it was loose? And then as you went maybe 2 or 3 car lengths further in the banking, did it pick it back up a little bit? Would it catch it? You know, if it's a little loose for a couple of car lengths, I'll hang on to it, and then when it sits, I'll be good to go.
You know, that's the famous part about Charlotte. Everybody talks about the bump. Can you drive over the hump getting into turn 1? It's not a hump so much as the straightaway just stops and the corner begins. You know what I mean? And whether you drive over it and let the car land in the corner, or whether you let off sooner and let the car transition in, totally affects your lap time.
Just don't let off on top of it.
Just don't let off on top, because you're unloading when you get there. The funny thing about this racetrack too, and we talked about earlier when we saw one of the cars, Chapman, when we saw him spin and get below the line. The white line is not on the bottom of the racetrack, okay? And I know that sounds strange to a lot of people, but the white line goes down to a certain point, and there's still about 6 to 10 inches of asphalt below that white line that's still the corner. And it's funny because when you first come here, you don't want to go below the white line because you're afraid it's going to unload, you're afraid it's going to unload, and all of a sudden you drop it down below there and it's like, man, there's some fresh asphalt. Nobody's been on that. Gives you grip, helps the car roll through the center of the corner.
Dick, what's going on with Brad Keselowski?
Well, he's having a little bit of a problem getting through the bumps. That's nothing unusual here at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Most of the teams do have trouble with that. He has a brand new car, and they've just changed the right rear spring in that car to try to help him get through the bumps a little bit better. We should also point out that this guy has been running at the finish for a grand total of 69 nationwide races in a row. And for those who say that Keselowski's a little rough, maybe even real rough on the racetrack, you kind of wonder how a guy can rack up 69 races without a DNF if he's driving over his head.
All right, thank you, Dick. Brad Keselowski in the top 10. You saw the 32 car driven by Brian Vickers. He's sharing that ride with Reed Sorensen this year. Vickers 6th overall in the 32 car.
But I don't think Vickers was too happy with, as we watched that right before we went to break, or right before this, he went down in turn 1, the left rear bottomed out. You saw it throw sparks, send him up the racetrack, and he comes right back into the garage area. That's what the Cup drivers will do. A Cup driver will go out and go in a corner, and if something messes up or they don't like the lap, they just come in. The Nationwide drivers will continue to run and say, okay, I can adjust to this, but you don't want to adjust to the car. You want the car to adjust to you, and then you want to adjust to the racetrack. And that's a hard thing sometimes for young drivers to learn, is they think, yeah, I'll just get up on the wheel and I'll drive this thing. It's not about getting up on the wheel and driving it. Everybody can get up on the wheel and drive it for a few laps, but the good guys make the car do the majority of the work.
Well, last week, as Jeff said, the 20 car was driven by Joey Logano. He was dominant, although he did not win the race. This week, Matt, it's Denny Hamlin.
And Hamlin in the car, Steve, making his first Nationwide Series start of 2010. And the game plan at the beginning of this session, they told Denny, look, we've got some sets of tires left. We haven't scuffed anything in yet. Others have scuffed. So he went out and made an 11-lap run, said the car is good. They told him to come in. They're going to go out and do a 1-lap scuff possibly on the set of tires they're going to put on. But he's pretty pleased with this 20 car.
Thanks, Matt. Kyle, let's talk about that. Why would they make just a 1-lap run to get us basically a scuff in that set?
You know, I think we saw it in the Cup practice, and you've seen it. Now these guys are thinking about qualifying a little bit. Not that they're going to make a full-blown effort at a qualifying run, but they're thinking about saying, okay, and we talked about in the opening, you know, getting too many heat cycles in a car. If you're only putting 1 lap on and he's going to go out here and run, it's not going to get the optimum temperature anyhow. So it's not a full heat cycle. It's a partial heat cycle. And these tires will still be good in case they did have to race on Monday. And I'm not saying they're going to race on Monday. I'm planning on them racing tomorrow because I think it's going to be a good race.
Kyle Busch still the quickest. He's put 6 laps on this 1.5 mile Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Stay with us here on Speed. 51 teams have made the trip to the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And Jeff Hammond, I want to follow up. You talked about the logistics. Most of these teams obviously based in North Carolina, but so a lot of teams after the California race 1 week ago stayed out here on the West Coast.
Yes, they did. About 38 of those 51 teams elected to stay here or make the transition over from Los Angeles to Las Vegas, which is only about a 3.5–4 hour drive. And they were able to find places around the race, I mean, as far as different hotels or even here at the racetrack, they allowed them to come in, unload their cars, work on them, do what they needed to do. We've already talked a little bit about Brendan Gaughan. He's got a race shop right over here behind the Speedway. He opened his doors for his, not only his teams, but other teams to come in and use his facilities to make whatever necessary repairs. I mean, Brendan, did damage to his primary car, which they were going to run here. Had to go back and pick up another car, brought it out. It wound up taking his backup car, became his primary, and they had to bring another backup out. Long story short, but they did a lot of work here in this area to get prepared for this weekend. But it just makes sense. It's easier on the crews. It's easier on the equipment overall. And if you're prepared when you get here, it makes this kind of like you're racing around in North Carolina.
Jack Roush was on NASCAR Race Hub Wednesday, and he talked about that, the logistics of it, and how a lot of the guys stayed out here and what they were going to do to get the cars ready. It does make a lot of sense.
And I like what Kyle said too. Las Vegas is 24/7, baby, and sometimes that's what racers have to do, 24/7.
Dick Berger, I think it's kind of funny to be going to work while people are still playing in the casino.
Yeah, it is. And if people were at the South Point Hotel and Casino over the course of the week, they would have seen a lot of the Nationwide haulers parked there. Brendan Gaughan's dad owns that casino. And in addition to the shop that's right here on Speedway property, they opened up the parking lots, and a lot of teams were there. The Speedway opened up its garages as well, and many of the teams were here. Brendan, on his way back out to the racetrack, likes his race car, says he can move it up a half a groove, move it down a half a groove, put it anywhere he wants to. They made a shock change to try to make it even better for him.
Now, Kyle, how important is that to you as a driver? When you come to a racetrack, do you like having that versatility, or you got a mindset, I'm just going to run the bottom and that's all I want to do?
Okay, you're talking to the wrong person, because I was just going to run the bottom, and that's all I was ever going to do. Okay, and I'm sorry. But no, you got to have that, and today more than ever. If we go back and you go back to the Pearsons and the Pettys, they run high. They run right up next to the wall. You go back to watch that old footage at Darlington, that old footage at Daytona and Bristol. They're up next to the wall. The fastest way around the racetrack is always the bottom when it comes to qualifying. And now with the technology that we have, the bottom seems to be the fastest place to qualify, but it's not always. It kind of changes, and the groove changes, and the rubber that Goodyear brings. Everything changes. It's a constantly changing landscape when you look at this sport now. And it is so funny to watch the guys like Mark Martin, the old school guys. They'll still get a groove and hammer that groove. Mark Martin will hammer that bottom groove till a heck freezes over. Kyle Busch and some of those guys, they'll search all day long for a groove, and maybe they'll find it and maybe they won't, but at least they search.
Let's talk about a groove. When you say you're searching, you always talk about you like running the bottom, but if you ever did get up, what were you looking for?
You're just looking for a feel. And I know that there is nothing more frustrating to a crew chief than to work all week long at a place like this, hammer the bottom, and then all of a sudden I move to the top of the racetrack and I'm saying, this thing won't drive a lick up here. Why won't? Well, you hadn't been up there all week.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I hadn't been to the top of the racetrack all week. No wonder it doesn't. And that's why you'll see these guys now in practice move from the bottom and move to the top, so they've got some idea of what the bottom is. But it's all about feel. It's all about when you can pick up the throttle, when you can get on. We watched last week in the Cup race. You watch Kevin Harvick move to the top of the racetrack. Jimmy gave him that line coming out of turn 3, and Kevin powered up probably a split second quicker than he needed to. Car shoved out, got away from him, got in the wall. He still ends up finishing second, but he had run Jimmy down from so far behind. Kevin Harvick was the man to beat last week. He found a place that he was comfortable and he could run fast in.
Kyle, take a look at his hands, Kevin Harvick's hands, that is, inside the car. Is that where he wants to be?
I have no clue. I'm not going to put myself in one of these driver situations anymore because everybody's car is different. But Kevin gets around this place probably as good as any other driver that comes out here. But you see this, and we saw it last week in the in-car cameras. This week, Kevin in this car is left. Just giving it a little bit to the left. Last week, these guys were left, right, left. They were all over the wheel. So Kevin's car looks really good, and as you listen to the throttle trace or listen to him, it doesn't sound like he's rolling out of it much, getting in the corners and getting back down the straightaways.
I read some of the drivers said that heading to Vegas, they were looking forward to running wide open during qualifying. It sounds like they're doing it here.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you, when you listen to this car, when you're watching Kevin and listening to it, that's why I don't drive anymore. I never look forward to running wide open anywhere but Daytona and Talladega. You know what I mean? But when you watch this, and we're watching the 12 and the 62 here, these guys are all over the racetrack. They're high, they're low, they're trying different places. And I think, just as Jeff said, since weather may be a possibility tomorrow, and they're talking about it coming in, these guys have got to do their final. This is their happy hour. This is what they've got to figure everything out right now.
Yeah, we just saw Justin Allgaier in the 12. He is 6th overall. Kyle Busch still the quickest. Brendan Gaughan, a Las Vegas native, makes his way around this 1.5 miles. Danica Mania continues. Tune in tonight as Danica Patrick and Juan Pablo Montoya stop by the ultimate Friday night house party. Don't miss NASCAR Trackside Live tonight, 8:30 Eastern, and only on Speed.
Kyle, make sure you tune in. Danica's going to sit in Steve's lap.
No, she's not. Nope. The backstory,
I'm going to be in the crowd.
The backstory is
man.
Hammond has been lobbying to get Danica to sit next to him.
I could care less.
You lying dog.
Hey, I am not lying. I think she's a very attractive lady, but it doesn't matter to me. She's a race car driver. I don't like race car drivers.
Oh,
that's true. You hear, and here's Danica. Did you hear her roll out of it
Yes,
right there?
I did.
She's right back to it. That's where you want to be running.
Yeah, she's back in that corner up just right, not overcharging it. But when she gets back to throttle, she's back wide open.
She's back wide open.
Yeah.
And she's already got 15, 20 laps on these tires, so these are not fresh tires. But listen how fast she got back to that. I mean, you hear Kevin, drivers do different things. Some drivers will get all the way out. Some drivers will drag a brake when they get to the corner, especially during qualifying. And some guys that are really brave they'll either go wide open or they'll feather or whatever. Okay, this is going to be good. Wide.
Yeah, it's going to be good. If you would have been here last week, you could have heard last week she was really kind of This week, definitely much smoother to the throttle.
Okay, and if you look at it that way, and if we're going to compare last week to this week in this particular car for this particular driver, then you got to say she learned something.
She did.
She's learned something, and she's come back to the racetrack in a better place, and I think it's showing up on the board when you look at her lap times. And you saw right there, she feathered out of it, got out of the way on a straightaway. Another car had run her down. She wants to be running her own groove and her own way on the racetrack. She don't want to get in anybody else's way right now, but she wants to learn at her pace, and that's why she just pulls over down the straightaway and gets out of the way.
There's one thing I have got a lot of respect for her about is she's figuring this thing out without getting in anybody's way in the process. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Her learning curve is not going to affect your practice lap.
Well, Kyle said it in first practice. This is the deep end of the pool. And somebody said, do you think Danica's going to make it? How do I know?
How do you know?
But she's got to go do it.
But the thing is, Steve, this thing about how easy it is, we've all done this before. Somebody comes up alongside you, kind of like wants to race. What do? You kind of like, okay, I'll show you. But anybody gets around her right now, she lets them go. She gets right back to what she's doing.
Let me tell you something. There was nothing worse when I started 100 years ago than sitting in your car and having the window net suddenly drop down, and there stands Bobby Allison or David Pearson or Kel Yarborough getting ready to tell you something you did wrong.
Yeah.
You didn't want to get in their way because they were there making a living. You were there learning. They were there making a living and winning races, and you didn't want to get in. And Darrell Waltrip's always said it. Richard Petty's got the longest finger in the world when he starts pointing at you and pumping it in your chest. And believe me, I saw it plenty of times in my lifetime. Okay, so let's be honest about that. But that's why a rookie driver, as you come into a series, and it's not only Danica, it's the other guys that have come in and have run through. When Brad Keselowski came in, when Denny Hamlin came in, it's the same way. You've got to find your place where you can run comfortable and where you can be in the sport.
Well, Matt has an update on Kyle Busch.
And the way it looks, Steve, so far during practice, Danica and 41 others are going to have to deal with Kyle Busch tomorrow. His car, stout. The first run, he said, you know what? It's so good we should just park it. But then they decided to go out and make another run. He says, now I believe it's a little bit tighter, but it's more due to the tires, not the chassis adjustment they made. But they're looking for another e-ticket victory like they had last week in Fontana.
That really surprises me that Kyle Busch is stout.
Very surprising.
Caught totally off guard on that one.
It surprises me that we're going to break with Danica. Sunday, the biggest names in NASCAR are on NASCAR race day from Las Vegas. Jimmy Johnson, Mark Martin, Denny Hamlin, Tony Stewart, and the Busch brothers join us live. NASCAR race day built by the Home Depot live from Vegas, Sunday at noon, only on Speed. 30 minutes into an hour and 20-minute practice. Final practice for the NASCAR Nationwide Series teams.
Mike Bliss right there, currently 21st. Now, earlier we were listening to first practice. Kyle, he was complaining about his car bouncing too much over the bumps. Now, it looks like they've done some work on it. It doesn't look quite as rough as it was earlier.
Yeah, but as you saw coming up out of 4 there, the valence is up on the left side. But, this is, we talked about it being bumpy getting into turn 1. And we're switching to the 6 car. Look at the valence on the 6 car. It's almost on the ground right there. The Roush cars are totally white this week. the 6 and the 16. Nothing on them at all, just the numbers.
They have, Kyle, the way I understand it, I talked to Jack Roush Wednesday when he did NASCAR Race Hub. They have a half-year sponsorship on the 6 and a half-year on Colin Brown's team. So I guess Conway Freight is on the 16 and City Financial on the Ricky Stenhouse car. So they are looking for other sponsors for those young drivers.
But he's committed to try to race these two drivers,
oh,
bring
they
them
are
up through the ranks and get the job done. And one other thing, too, I want to notice, if you'll notice, Kyle talking about the valence, you can see the orange, bright day-glow orange tape on the bottom of that valence so they can look and see from pictures. There's a lot of these engineers right now that are taking pictures. There's the cat in the hat, owner of the 6, 16, 60, and the 98. Not the 27. Not the 27.
You ever notice how Jack always looks happy?
Yeah.
Always.
Oh, hey, it's kind of like
he's standing in victory lane and he looks like that.
You ought to work for him sometime. He'd walk in and think, oh my God, what did I do wrong? No, he's something else.
Because when he gets to the racetrack, this is where he works. And he is so focused. He is one of the most intense individuals you will ever run across. He comes for one reason, and that's to stand in victory lane. Not to do the PR, not to do all the hobnobbing and everything that goes on in this form of racing anymore. He comes for the race cars.
Kyle, when he hired Mark Martin back in 1988, he told us a great story on Wednesday. He said that he sat down with Mark. I believe he said Jeff Bodine was one of the other drivers he was talking to. He said he sat down with Mark. All Mark wanted to know is, how many times are we going to test? How often are you going to be in the shop? Because, you know, Jack was based or is based still in Michigan, although he spends a lot of time in North Carolina. So Jack said, we left, we shook hands, we said, okay, let's think about it. He goes, and I realized he never asked me about compensation. Mark Martin never once asked him about money. And Jack didn't say it, but I'll bet you that's why Mark got the ride.
But all Mark wants to do is drive a race car. He didn't care about anything. He knew he could make the money. You just got to give him the opportunity, and that's exactly right. And that's why they were such a perfect pair for so long. Their outlook and their focus on racing was always the same.
Now, let me ask you guys a question. How many owners that you can think of have given as many drivers opportunities to drive race cars as Jack Roush has since he's come into NASCAR?
No.
You think about the number of people that's gone through his stables. Some people say, well, he's a little bit too quick to get rid of a guy.
No.
Jack expects a man to come in, do his job, and then, like Kyle's saying, win races, be competitive. If you can't do that, then he knows he's got good equipment. You got to go somewhere else.
Yeah, and this is Carl. This is one of his diamonds in the rough when he picked up Carl.
Nobody ever heard of Carl Edwards.
Nobody knew. Kenny Schrader's the only guy that knew Carl Edwards, and that's because they saw each other at the family reunions every year. You know what I mean? So he's the only guy. And Carl has come out and is a superstar in this sport. And, you know, you've got to go all the way back to the early days of racing, to the 50s, really the mid-50s and early 60s, when teams like Junior Johnson or Petty Enterprise and those guys had Panch and Pascal and Tiny Line and guys like they'd have 6 or 7 drivers a year drive for them, and everybody got a shot to drive. But you don't do that in this day and time. A sponsor dictates most of the time who you put in this car, and what Jack's been very, very good about and been good for the sport, he'll put kids in cars without sponsors on them because he believes in their ability. Now, if you don't cut it, he's not going to keep you there.
No.
But that's the way it is in the NBA and in the NFL and then Major League Baseball. If you can't make it once you get to the big dance, you got to go home, man, and that's the way it is. But at least you had your shot.
And Steve, you were talking about, you know, I'm sure you've read a lot of stuff about Jack Roush, and so have I. And I also want to point out something. I found out that while Jack was coming up through working at Ford and getting his company started, he used to teach school at one time. Can you imagine him being your professor?
Wow.
Find out whether you can cut the grade or not.
Wow.
I can say this about a lot of people, but what I did say about Jack, when I'm in the same room, I go, wow, he's smarter than me.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's exactly right.
That's
right.
He's a smart
Without
man.
saying a single word, you know what I mean? He's one of those guys that's quiet about it, and you know that his mind's just clicking the whole time.
But you know what's so amazing about him, too? He's also a thrill seeker. Flies his own airplane, loves stunt planes, goes out and rides snowmobiles and things. He might look like he's nothing but a numbers guy, but he knows how to have a good time.
But as we know, that's a genetic flaw, okay? So let's be honest, okay?
That's right.
Let's be honest, though.
Speaking of intelligent, Dick Berggren has an update on Danica.
And Danica is definitely intelligent. It's neat listening to her have conversation with her crew chief and the rest of her team because she asks as many questions as she provides data about the way the car is behaving. So she said the car is pushing, pushing, pushing. And she told the team that she has tried a variety of lines. In 1 and 2, where you've got the bumps down low, she's gone upstairs. She said that helped to push a little bit, but she felt that going upstairs meant it just a longer lap, more feet to run. Didn't think that that was really helping her. She talked about using the brake going into turn 3, and then she started to ask the questions. How about if I do this, and how about if I do that? Is this the sort of thing that we should expect over the course of a day, that a car would push, 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 and get worse over time? And of course, the crew told her, kid, you're on old tires, and it's just going to get worse. But they've changed a couple of rear springs in the car. They're going to try to unload it a little bit so she has less of a push. Matt?
And her teammate Kelly Byers looks very solid so far. 5th fastest on the board. So breaking down the handling your car to Tony Eury Sr., what did you tell him in different sections of this racetrack?
Yeah, well, we've been fighting a little bit, getting into the corner over the bumps at the front end of the car, and then just being a little bit tight, a little bit snug on exit. The guys brought a great HendrickCars.com Chevrolet here to the racetrack. It's been a lot of fun to drive, and we're just basically fine-tuning to get the thing better in a race trim. We're close. It's just a matter of going back and forth, and but we're close to getting it.
All right, they definitely are. When you look at his career, this will be his 70th start when he rolls off the grid tomorrow afternoon.
All right, thank you, Matt. Kelly Byers, a Wisconsin native. The shy one, Kenny Wallace, making friends, kissing babies. How you doing? Nice to meet you, Kenny Wallace. Minutes into a 1 hour, 20-minute practice here at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Kyle Busch continues to be the quickest single lap in his Toyota. He's followed by Carl Edwards, Brian Vickers, Greg Biffle, Kevin Harvick, and Denny Hamlin.
I don't know exactly what Kevin's working on. He's only run like 11 laps during this practice session. But Kyle, you pointed out earlier that he knows this racetrack pretty well. He knows what he's looking for.
Yeah, and you know, it's so nice to come to a racetrack when you're a driver, and I'm sure it is working with a driver as a crew chief, where the driver is comfortable when he gets there because he already knows what he's looking for. So you work towards the same solid goal, or the same common goal. When you're working with Danica or with one of the younger drivers that are out here, they're still trying to figure out what their feel is. What do I want this car to feel like out here? Harvick, he's been out here so many times, he knows exactly. So he's pinpointed, you know, I need it to feel like this getting in. I need it to feel like this through the middle. I need it to feel like this. And when Harvick tells you it doesn't have enough motor, or man, I've got tons of engine in this thing, then you believe him. When these young drivers tell you sometimes, it's like, man, I'm not sure you really even know what you're feeling yet.
You're right. It makes it a whole lot easier. Take a look here at Robert Richardson, his 23 car. Currently, he's 47th, Steve. And I believe, I'd have to check with our guys over in stats, would he be in the race if we get rained out? Because he's not really showing enough speed. He's got to qualify on time.
Well, while the famous Russell Wenrich and Jimmy K. Hicks looked that up.
Because I mean, again, his speed is not very good.
I bow to their greatness, though, because they kicked our rear end on NASCAR Smarts. So I bow to them right now, okay?
Speaking of which, you have a special guest on NASCAR Smarts.
Yes, we do.
I use special.
Special in so many ways. Special in so many ways. You have to tune in this week for NASCAR Smarts because Carrot Top is on NASCAR Smarts with us. I think he's playing with Mike Wallace. I think he and Mike Wallace are teaming up against myself and Cotton Top, alias Rutledge. Okay.
Has he recovered from eating his 22-inch sausage last week?
I'm telling you, my man was a legend. That was a legendary performance out in California when he ate that sausage, and you know, he laid up in the hotel room for a few days, but he's doing really good.
And we should add that he did it in 15 minutes.
He did it in 15 minutes. I don't care who you are. You got hats off to Rutledge Wood for doing that. That was a big Budweiser promotion that they had out there, but it was pretty cool.
But let me ask you something. You want to say hats off to something like that? Why weren't you doing it if it was such a great thing?
Why wasn't I doing it?
Because
Hold on.
Kyle took pictures.
Look at this girlish figure I have. A moment on the lips, a lifetime on the hips. I'm not eating that, okay? Let's go.
That's funny.
I'm sorry,
That's
man.
Funny right
I'm
there.
sorry.
Oh, man. What gets me, see, Kyle wants to put Rutledge up on a pedestal.
Yes, he is.
So he can talk him into doing the next stupid thing down the road
here. I had nothing to do with
and
that.
making him feel like it was the right thing to do. You guys need to be easier on my boy. Right? You're going to hurt him one of these days.
Yeah.
Hey, Dick, Michael Annett was good in first practice, and he's 10th right now.
Yeah, he's run very well all day long, Steve. The only problem that they're facing with the car is it doesn't seem to want to be really good at both ends of the racetrack. I think we've already documented that we've really got 2 different entrances, 2 different exits when we look at the first and second turn versus the third and fourth corner. So that's what they're going to try to fix for this 23-year-old driver who somehow or another dug his way out of the snow in Des Moines to get here to Las Vegas.
And that's an excellent point. You know, there are 2 totally different ends to the racetrack. And I don't mean, you know, when you look at it from an aerial view, it is a pretty symmetrical racetrack. But when you as you get down in the corner, you kind of fall off into turn 1, and then you have to make a hard turn to get off turn 2. Getting into turn 3, it's a hard turn into turn 3, and then you just give the car its head, which means just let the car go where it wants to go up off turn 4. Try not to get in its way, try not to put too much wheel in it, and let it go. But the problem is, the trick is to get it to rotate in the center of the corner to put yourself in position both places. A lot of times you can get through 1 and 2 because you run in and run up against the bank. As you run into 3, the bank from the center of 3 off falls away from you.
It'll lead you into a bad place. Now, here's a guy we saw earlier, and I still see sparks coming out beneath this number 92 car. He wrecked in the first practice session off of that corner before he even got it to speed good, but it looks like the guys did a pretty good job making repairs to it. So Johnny Chapman's back on the racetrack.
And you know, we don't talk about these guys enough sometimes. And you know, everybody made a big deal last year when Jimmy Johnson's running in the chase and they crash at Texas and they get the thing back out there. That's a Hendricks organization. They're prepared. These guys probably bought 5 or 6 guys out here, plus a driver. They wreck right off the bat. They don't have a backup driver, or excuse me, a backup car. And within basically an hour and a half or 2 hours, they've got this car back out on the racetrack and up to speed. I mean, the guys out there running 180, 90 miles an hour in this thing. That's kudos to that team right there, and the hard work that just regular racers put into getting their car and keeping it running.
Dick Berggren standing by with a talented 19-year-old.
That's Trevor Bayne making his very first appearance ever at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. So how's it going, rookie?
It's not bad. You know, we're fighting the bumps over in 1 and 2 right now. The car's hitting the earth pretty bad, so we're trying to get it up without losing the drive. You know, you want to keep that valence down, digging on the ground, so these guys are trying to figure out what they can do to get it over those bumps a little bit smoother, but keep it down on the ground. So it's kind of hard to do sometimes, but they're doing a good job of it. 3 and 4, we feel pretty strong in this Aaron's Dream Machine today, but we'll get there, you know. It's a different place, fast and a lot of fun.
I like the smile on your face. Matt.
Dick over here in the 33 garage at Kevin Harvick. Ream back on the car for another week. Harvick chasing his second win here. Now they just completed half a fuel run, and Harvick wanted to know exactly how many laps because the tendency of the balance to change. It burned off some fuel. It started to get a little bit tight as the nose weight shifted, and basically he's saying now they don't want to go as far as adjustments too free at the beginning of the run because now they've got an idea of where this balance is. And KP, if you look at the front of this car, I don't know if you can see up at the right front, your cousin, Timmy Petty, longtime engine tuner working on this machine.
That's a plus. Timmy's a good guy, man. That whole Timmy, Mark, and Richie, they've worked at Childress's, you know, and they've done a bunch of stuff, and he's a tuner. That's what you need. I mean, we were talking about reading plugs and stuff, and Timmy's been doing this his whole life.
Yeah, your Uncle Maurice Petty, longtime engine builder, and he was quite a tuner in his day.
And you know, that there was an art, like we talked about before. Leonard Wood, Waddell Wilson, Maurice Petty, those guys, they could tune an engine sometimes just by listening to it. Junior Johnson, my God, that sounds like it needs a little more jet. They need to take a little more time in a way. Whatever, just listening to it.
You can't forget somebody that used to work for Champion Spark Plugs, the legendary
Earl Parker, man. Earl Parker, my God.
He was a legend.
I don't know how racing survived without Earl Parker, man.
It
did for a while. It was ugly for a while. That's true.
Well, stay with us. More nationwide practice coming up here on Speed. It's the wildest collection of talent ever assembled at NASCAR tracks. Singers, dancers, comedians, and a whole lot more. Fast Track to Fame premieres this Monday night at 8 Eastern, only on Speed.
Kyle, make sure you lock Rutledge up before that happens.
I'm telling you, man, we are traveling city to city auditioning right now. We're trying to get on. We can't get on.
I saw some of the...
Don't. Stop.
Dude, I saw him.
Let's talk about Kelly Byers. He's back out there right now.
Yeah, well, it's funny. We were talking about Kelly Byers, Danica's teammate. I looked at you and I said, hell, you got a teammate.
Here's what I want to know about Kelly Byers and some of these guys. I want to know how many drivers, this is a stat question, how many drivers in the Nationwide Series cannot stop in a casino when they walk through. They have to go straight to their rooms because they're too young.
Because they're
too young. You know what I mean? How amazing is that when you come out here and you look at that you've got to keep moving as you go through the casino? It's like, hey, kid, I know you run 200 miles an hour, but keep it moving. Keep it moving.
Hold on 1 second before you move on.
I'm not moving on.
I just want to make sure that I say something about stat guys right quick. They got me some information back on Robert Richardson. I asked a little bit later that, you know, he doesn't have to qualify. He's locked in. He's good shape.
All right, now to Kyle's point, that being 19 years old, when I was 19, I was between semesters, I was pouring concrete, and all I worried about was beer and gas money.
Oh, that's true.
That's all I cared about. Now, you were 19 when you started at Talladega, your first Cup start. I can't imagine being 19 years old and racing against the King and David Pierce.
Are you talking about the Cup race?
Yeah.
Because his first race was at Daytona.
No. His first Cup start, he was 19 years old.
That's right.
You know what? And it's funny to watch these guys and listen to them talk because they pay no attention to it. And you don't when you're 18 or 19 years old. You don't pay any attention to who it is. You're having so much fun driving that car. You're doing something you've dreamed about, you know, since you were 8 years old and driving a go-kart. You've looked up to Junior, and you've looked up to Jeff, and you've looked up to Kyle Busch and those guys. And you say, my God, now I'm on the same playing field they are. And you're a little bit in awe, but at the same time, it's like, I'm out here with them. So, I mean, you don't pay any attention to the age. I just find it incredibly funny that you're at a place where you got to be 21 to do anything.
Yeah.
And we've got guys out here that are doing this that are that young.
I got one question for you. We've been talking about your history, and you talked about people coming to the window and letting the window net down. When you first started, who was the one in the Petty family? Was it Maurice, your daddy, or your, Uncle Dale Emmett that came over and really gave you the biggest tongue lashing? Or even your granddad?
Oh, my God. No. This was like, you know what? I watched WWF and some of that stuff. They were WWF. They'd tag team you. Okay?
Oh, okay.
One of them would get you down on the mat, and then they would tag out, and another one would get you. You know what I mean? That was the worst. Having one boss man was one thing. Having 4 boss men, that was totally different. And Granddaddy would sit at home and watch the race on TV and tell you everything you did wrong, even if he didn't see it on TV. And then you had Uncle Morris, and you had Daddy, and then you had Dale, and then you had Wade, and you had Wayne, and I mean, everybody there. I had grown up around a race shop, so they all looked at you that way. You know what I mean? And it was a lot of fun, though.
How about Richie Barr? Does he ever get on you?
No, Richie only got on me when I would mess up stuff. He taught me to weld. My man, he's still around. I love Richie Barr to death.
Wearing the coveralls.
No doubt about that. That's exactly right.
Let's go back to the garage and Dick Berger.
Yeah, and you don't need to be a 19-year-old starting one of your very first races in this series to have a great time. Here's 50-year-old Mike Wallace making his 350th start, and you're having a good time today. How's that hot rod of yours?
Man, I have got a hot rod. I'm going to tell you what, I told Johnny, I said, I'm done practicing. I run through 3 and 4 wide open on used tires, all but wide open through turn 1. I says, dude, if they're going to beat us, they're going to beat us going straight only. There's no way they're going to drive through us in the corner or around us. But we're so excited. The Monster Diesel Chevrolet is running very well. And like I said, it's handling incredibly well. We bounced off the racetrack in the first practice session, got it tuned up, worked on some shocks, and heck, we got Carrot Top being our crew chief tomorrow, so what the heck's better than that in Vegas?
Carrot Top's your crew chief?
Carrot Top's calling the shots for us here tomorrow at Las Vegas. He's going to hold the signboard for us on pit road, and was bowling the other night, ran into Flavor Flav with the big clock on him and everything. We're having a heck of a time out here in Vegas. We're having a blast.
With 350 starts, I thought you knew better than Carrot Top as your crew chief. Good luck tomorrow, Mike Wallace.
We're in here in Vegas, baby.
Flavor Flav and Carrot Top. That's big right there.
I think
that's a celebrity reality show.
It really is. I think you need to trade. Maybe think about trading Rutledge in for Flavor Flav.
I don't want to tell Mike, but I think that reality show got canceled. Okay, let me just let's be honest. But you know, I'm gonna tell you what. Mike is, and talked to Mike last week in California. He is so excited about just being in a race car and driving, and it came through right there. You know what I mean? And that's what's so. A 50-year-old racing against a 19-year-old. You know what I mean? You don't see that in any other sport. I don't care, whatever it is. You don't see it, and can run competitive with each other because, you know, that talent and experience, it crosses somewhere, and these guys can run door to door with each other.
On board with Danica, she is 29th quickest right now. We go back to the garage and Matt.
And one of those teams that has drivers that share a car throughout the year. Brian Vickers in the 32, his 3rd of 10 races in 2010 in this car, but his next race won't be until Talladega. This team currently 6th in the Owners' Championship standings. Right now, he says the car snug in the center. The last change I made, which was a shock adjustment, he said didn't really seem to give a lot more feedback. Right now, they're just going to scuff in a set of tires.
All right, thanks, Matt. Teammates Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin leading the way here in final practice for the Nationwide Series. As the favorites fell in Daytona, Timothy Peters proved he is not a one-hit wonder. Now the newest truck star leads the field into Atlanta, where everyone runs on the ragged edge. Don't miss the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series live from Atlanta, March 6th at 1:30 Eastern, only on Speed. Speaking of running the ragged edge, Denny Hamlin, second quick. He's with Matt.
Very fast so far during this practice session. And Denny, the team working over the nose of the race car. What are you still chasing with this car?
Oh, I mean, we're a little bit tight, but I think we need to start the race that way and then work from there. It seems like in history here, I've always been really loose in the race. So our interstate batteries Camry has been good. Struggling for a little bit of speed until right there at the end, but I'm pretty happy with it.
Now, branching out on your business interest, you opened up your nightclub in Charlotte. How was the grand opening?
It was good. You know, we had Fergie there and the whole Black Eyed Peas, and it was just a great event. They actually performed a couple songs, so it got the crowd going.
For the folks at home, the name is?
What's that?
The name is?
Butter.
Butter. Butter.
Pure butter, baby.
Butter, butter. Talk amongst yourselves.
Butter, baby.
Talk amongst yourselves. I'm a little verklapt right now. Talk amongst
Butter.
yourselves. Butter. I'm sorry, man.
Somebody
I'm sorry.
get me out of here.
Brad Keselowski, 11th. By the way, Jeff Heyman pointed out that John West Townley is now 5th.
But that's a little bit like we talked about it in the opening of the show. There's going to be guys that bust off a qualifying lap or are trying to qualify for that reason. You got an answer?
And the thing is, right now, I'm just the reason why John West Townley went from 4th to 5th was because Greg Biffle has just now jumped to the top of the leaderboard, guys, in that 27 car. He has laid down quite a lap. He's only the second car to get into the 30s at a 29.62 compared to Kyle Busch's 29.87. That's pretty impressive. I think you'd have to say, Steve, he ran through both ends of this racetrack wide open.
I'd say so. Just two drivers under 30 seconds a lap, Biffle and Kyle Busch. Kyle, an interesting thing, we were talking about these 19-year-olds and some of the younger guys. Greg Zipadelli said last year, you know, a lot of people were saying, ooh, Joey Logano's over his head. But Greg said it wasn't that Joey was over his head in terms of talent. What he was not sure about was what to tell him. He was not confident in his feedback.
And that's a perfect point, because I was going to say the same thing. He was not over his head from a talent standpoint, but he was way over his head on what he knew and how he knew to tell that to the crew chief. He
was undereducated.
Yeah, he could not tell the crew chief what he was looking for. And I saw something last week, and I said it a couple of times last week or during the week on different things. I thought for the first time last week, I saw Joey Logano take what he learned on Saturday and transfer it to Sunday. First time. It's been almost a year that he's been in the Cup Series, and he's run the nationwide cars, and he's run the Cup Series, but it's not transferred. He could kick your butt on a Saturday and run like dog you know what on Sunday. And I'm sorry, there's no other way around it. But last year, but this last race at California, it transferred for the first time, and that's huge for that team. And I think, you know, when you look at Greg and you look at that, that's Greg nurturing that kid and bringing him along to a point where I think they're going to be, before the end of the year, they're going to be tough. They're going to do tough.
And Joe Gibbs giving him that time to learn. That's a big part of it.
That's a huge part. We talk about Jack Roush giving people time and bringing new people in. Once you bring somebody, you've got to commit to them. And Joe Gibbs committed to this kid and committed to this organization along with Home Depot, that whole crowd. So that's a huge, huge commitment, and it will pay off for him.
Let's go back to the garage and Dick.
Well, things are going better for Danica Patrick. She has told the crew that by adjusting her line, the car doesn't push nearly as much as it had before. It's still pushing, and they're working on that. They've changed another spring in that automobile to try to help her. She's going back out on the racetrack again. But she says the car works better in 1 and 2, but she's right down on the bottom of the racetrack. 3 and 4, she's messing a little bit with how sharp her entry is into those corners. She has got so many laps on the racetrack this afternoon. Driver has turned more laps than she has.
And that would be Brendan Gaughan, Dick. Actually, in this practice, Gaughan has put 36 laps on this 1.5 miles.
But you look at Danica, she's put 33 laps in this practice, 34, 35. She's got the most laps. She's put 70 or 80 laps on. She's put 100 and some miles on this car. When you start breaking it down on motor mileage, she's put 100 and some miles on this car just in these 2 practices.
1 hour into this practice, 20 minutes left on the racetrack. It's Biffle, Busch, Hamlin, Edwards, and John West Townley. Final practice continues for the NASCAR Nationwide Series teams. There's Jeremy Clements in the 04 car.
Your favorite sponsor right there.
Hey, you can make fun of Boudreaux's butt paste all you want, but you know when you gotta have it, you got a baby. That's what you gotta have.
Well, now right now they should be.
It's doctor tested, kid approved.
Hey, they should be. That'd be a booming business right now in NASCAR.
Good point. That's a very good point.
Elliott Sadler, Carl Edwards. You go down the list. Juan Pablo Montoya,
Jimmy Johnson, Jeff Gordon,
and not Brendan Gaughan. Don't leave him out.
Wow. You know, it's funny. We were just sitting here talking about Borneman and talking about his father racing. You bring up Ruben Garcia and Ron Esau and those guys. Remember when we used to come out here, used to come out west, man, and there were Bill Schmidt. There were always 6 or 7 guys that could run with the Cup guys. They were competitive with the Cup guys. Ruben and those guys, I mean, they were just there. And, you know, little by little.
John Krebs.
Yeah, Krebs. But little by little, those guys just moved east and raced with us now. You know what I mean? I mean, that's been the strange part about it over the last 10 or 12 years, because one of the questions on Smart the other day was a California driver that run Riverside, and it was Ray Elder.
Right.
And it was Ray Elder, and we were standing there, and it's like nobody could pick him out of the deal because nobody knew who Ray Elder was. But that was when the sport was just in its infancy, really, when you looked at it from being a national sport.
Well, you speak
there weren't a lot of people out
infancy,
here.
Legendary guy from the West Coast. How about Herschel McGriff?
Yeah, McGriff. Yeah, he's still running. I don't count him out, man. I mean, it's like he shows up. But, you know, and the Bounds, you know, Chuck Bound and his brother Jim and that guy, you know, you look at those.
But you're right, that changed. They used to run out here.
They ran out here, that's right.
Then Ron Hornaday, Kevin, those
then they all just moved back there. Mike Skinner, all those guys, they just moved back with us.
Don't forget Chad Little.
Yeah, Chad was one of the first. He and Derek were some of the first ones that really moved back. But it's really funny because it was always, you know, you'd come out here and there were always that West Coast competition. You didn't know how they played. It was something totally different. But that, it's good to see Borneman and see some of those guys still show up and run some of these nationwide races.
Speaking of 19-year-olds, Trevor Bayne from Knoxville, Tennessee.
You know, he got up with Gary Bechtel and Blake and those guys, and that's put that deal together with Michael and run some races last year, and he was impressive in the races he ran last year.
Like you said earlier, he's a wheel man. He's going to make it.
And people that don't know Gary Bechtel, he owned Diamond Ridge Motorsports, and he had a lot of success with Elliott Sadler and Jeff Green in the Nationwide Series.
Sadler.
Steve
in
Grissom.
fact,
that's how he got here.
I believe Jeff Green won the very first Nationwide Series race here, driving for Gary Bechtel.
Number 29 Diamond Ridge car.
Yep.
Yeah.
James
Keep
Busher.
digging here, man. Get all you can get here. Make sure.
He's from Texas. And Russell and Jimmy say, yes, Steve, it was Jeff Green.
You're a genius.
I get a little
You're
credit.
A genius. How about that?
Stat geniuses. Speed's presentation of NASCAR Nationwide Final Practice from Las Vegas is brought to you by the Sponsifier. Visit ToyotaRacing.com and click on Design It, Enter It. Got about 10 minutes of on-track action left in this final practice. Now, last week we had a transverse mountain range, the San Bernardino Mountains, but I'm not sure about this.
Wow, transverse.
Well, that runs east-west. I told you I know a lot of useless stuff.
Wow.
As I was going to say when we went to break a minute ago and I didn't get a chance to, he's not just a pretty face.
Yeah.
That's impressive right there. It's Kevin LePage.
Yep.
Shelby Howard in the 70 car. He is 31st overall. 49 of the 51 drivers have been on track in this practice.
Menard, who was the fastest car in the first practice, has not come out, has he?
He said he wasn't going to come out. He's happy with his race car.
I've been waiting when they started putting up these faster times. I kept waiting for him to come back out and just kind of see how the racetrack had changed, but they have stuck to their guns on that one.
Kevin Harvick, currently fourth quickest, has completed his like a qualifying attempt right there. He moved all the way up to fourth. And there's the guy who was the fastest in the first practice, Paul Menard, number 98.
Still up on jack stands.
Safest place for a race car.
That is the safest place.
But I don't want to hear it tomorrow. if you don't like the way this car drives because you didn't go out.
Jimmy Hicks is disputing my definition of transverse mountain ranges.
Come on, stat guys.
Jimmy, this says a general north-south orientation. That doesn't mean...
Let me just say this to you. To me, a mountain runs north to south or south to north. It starts here and it goes straight up in front of you. I don't care whether it's running which way it is. It's just a big old hill.
Thank you.
Okay.
Whether it's in the east and the west,
Yeah, I don't care.
See,
if you got to go up, it's a mountain.
They're mad because I got Jeff Green, the 97 winner.
Yeah,
So they're disputing my information.
This is like Jeopardy.
It is. Danica Patrick, 22nd overall now.
Completed 43 laps in this practice session, guys.
I'm going to tell you, that was, if you listen to her, I mean, her best lap's been a 30-45, but if you listen.
She had to work it a little bit.
She worked it a little bit right there, but she drove that thing down in that corner right there. And that's what's interesting when you hear overlap her sound or the sound of her driving to a Kevin Harvick. A Kevin will roll out of it and roll back into it or either stay in it.
Jeff, what are you going to ask her tonight on trackside at 8:30 Eastern?
I'm not telling. You got to tune in to find out. I may not ask her anything. I may just sit there and just take it all in. You know, I've been told a long time ago by my mother, silence is golden,
Let's be honest about it. Everybody's talked about her so much. Is there anything to ask?
Exactly.
Let's just move on to something else.
That's my point.
Let's just bring Juan out and talk to Juan the whole time.
No. That's going to be my question.
Let Juan ask her questions.
They're going to be on together for one segment.
Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be cool.
But I'm going to ask her that. What question have you not been asked?
Now, one thing I would kind of like to point out, when she comes back, the new Nationwide car will be in service. They're going to run it at Daytona, so there may be an opportunity for her to drive that a little bit later on this year, because in talking to some of the NASCAR officials, Joe Balish down in the garage here earlier this morning, along with Robin Pemberton, there have been 20+ new chassis that have gone through the NASCAR R&D Center to be certified, and there'll be some little bit unique changes. They're not going to allow these guys to run bump stops like they let Cup cars do. They're allowing 5 inches of travel, and it have a fixed 70-degree rear spoiler on it. I'm looking at the cars. I think they look pretty racy, pretty hot. And the key thing is, Kyle, they all are incorporating all the good safety features that NASCAR came up with in the Sprint Cup cars.
Yeah, and that is the best part. You know, when NASCAR went to this different car, it was for safety, and we've all complained, and we've all whined about it, but it's still for safety. And you know, I think when you look at it, that's the same thing they're trying to bring to the Nationwide Series.
Danny O'Quinn Jr. from Coburn, Virginia, heads to the garage where Dick Berggren is.
I'm watching Kevin LePage get out of his race car right now. He is one of the real veterans of this series, and he is fighting for his racing career. 2 wins so far in the Nationwide Series for LePage, and he does have a sponsor for this event. It's an energy drink called Start, and he's hoping that they are going to stay with him. If not, Kevin's out of it. So hopefully the sponsor will stick with him. Hopefully he'll get a chance to qualify tomorrow, that we won't get rained out. And hopefully he'll be with us for a long time yet to come.
Thanks, Dick. One of the great stories in the garage.
I think, Steve, that brings us back. We take a look here at another veteran racer here, Tony Raines, the 34 car, currently 41st. There's so many guys down there right now. Kyle, you keep talking about it.
Kyle's right.
To race.
Kyle's right. We tend to look at the Kevin Harvicks, Danica Patricks.
These guys are fighting just as hard.
Johnny Chapman show up with a handful of guys to help work on the car. Kevin LePage, who's, you know, I remember Kevin told me when he first came down from Vermont, one year he and his wife were looking for change in the couch just to be able to buy a pizza, you know, and that's those stories are still out there.
They're still out there, but the desire to come and race is burning just as bright. Tony Raines, just like Morgan Shepherd, as it is in Kevin Harvick, and the biggest difference is Kevin can enjoy what he's doing now because he's in.
Yeah.
He knows he's got sponsorship. He can pay for the tires. He knows where he's going to eat at tonight. These guys and gals that are trying to make this race here for tomorrow, they don't know anything. I mean, they're sweating the weather. They're sweating whether their cars are running fast enough. I mean, literally, they're probably going to the bathroom about every other hour thinking about throwing up.
And it is a long way home from Las Vegas.
Long way, man. It's a long, sad way.
Well, Brian Scott's moved up to second quick in his Toyota. The Biff, Greg Biffle, still fastest. Our leaderboard is changing here at Las Vegas. Greg Biffle still the quickest, but then it's Carl Edwards, Trevor Bayne, Brian Scott, and Brian Vickers. Let's go to Matt.
Jason Leffler, Steve, will end practice in the 12th position. So, Jason, after all you've learned, what changes are you going to have to make to this car for tomorrow?
Just going to have to keep freeing it up, make it roll through the center. Free it up without getting it loose. I mean, because you're not going to want to be loose here. You're running so fast. So, Great Clips Camry's really good. But we did our qualifying run there, and we were bound up tight. So we got to get that better because track position, you're going to want to start at top 10, otherwise it's going to be a long day.
Thanks, Jay.
A little added pressure right there.
Yeah, that's tough, man. Saying you're going to want to start top 10 or it's going to be a long day. You don't think about that most of the time in a place like this, you know, but I guess the clean air and being in the right group, that's a lot of pressure they're putting on themselves to be able to qualify in the top 10.
Dick Bergeron.
Well, as this practice session winds down right now, nobody has put more laps in this speedway than Danica Patrick, and she is still out there, Steve. And as the practice session has gone along, she has sounded more and more confident in herself, more confident in her feedback, more confident in her race car.
Working her 50th lap of this practice, Dick.
Kyle's already pointed it out. The first session, she ran like 34 laps. 37 laps. This one 50, so almost 87 laps right there in the course of the practices.
Yeah, and when you start looking at that, I mean, that's 125, 150 miles, and then you got to run the race tomorrow. You know, you hear people talk about it that the Daytonas and don't want to put a lot of miles on this engine, don't want to put a lot of miles on the car. But when you have young drivers, you have to. You have to put miles on the equipment to get them the seat time that they need. You take that gamble in the race that something might break, but at the same time, they're getting good, solid experience no matter who they are in practice.
You know, something else we haven't talked about, and I think we need to point this out. Unlike a lot of the other teams, when you're a rookie in this series, you do get an extra set of tires to practice on too.
And that's a good point. You know, used to, but with testing and stuff, used to you could go test. Now with all the testing bans and with everything, your testing is when you come. Imagine being an NFL player and only getting to practice game day. You know what I mean? Or the day before the game. And that's kind of the way this sport is. You only get to practice when it's time to play.
You bring up a good point. Tim Goad, who used to be your jackman,
yes,
went from North Carolina, playing football at North Carolina, to the NFL. And he said, you know, college, as a freshman, no problem. But going from college to the NFL was a whole new world.
Different world.
He said, I got embarrassed for 60 minutes the first game I started. He said, I'd never made a tackle, never touched the quarterback.
New daddy.
Annie joined the world this week.
See it.
She was over 8 pounds. Carl and Greg Biffle, the quickest, and then a bunch of Toyotas. John West Townley spent some time in the top 5, 11th overall. Sprint Cup qualifying coming up shortly, but right now we're going to go back down to the speed stage and our buddy John Roberts.